not here yet. We had to change the link at the last minute for it, so we're going to give everyone an opportunity to skedaddle on over to where we're at here. So just give me a second. We're going to get started. I'm trying to share the new link, but having a little trouble doing that. So loud and clear. Okay, that's good to know. All right, and okay. So maybe everyone will start seeing where we're at. We're not at the old link. Maybe someone will take that old link down for me. That'd be nice. If the old link was gone, that would be great. All right, so I'm just gonna get into it, and then as people come in, just come on in. But feel free, anyone who's shared the link before, just feel free to share an updated one because yeah, we had to change it. But anyway, so just give me a second. I was gonna try to share it real quick, but I couldn't before we started. Um, yeah, so again, I know you all are probably used to, or you were expecting Brother Lowe, but I'm the Anu floater. So Anu has not brought me on full time as of yet. I've been trying to get on full time because then I could get benefits, but they just been basically having me float. So basically, if someone can't do their shift or whatever, I cover them. And I mean it's all right for now, and you know, hopefully next year I'll be on fries. That's when the big money starts coming in. But no, so our brother Lowe had an important engagement that he had to attend to. So I offered to fill in for him. I'm still the Anu floater though, but nonetheless, I offered to fill in for him at the last minute. For some reason, I can't pull up the. I don't know. I was trying to share the video. Can't seem to pull it up. This particular video. Anyway, we're here though. So definitely welcome everyone. Like I said, I know you probably were expecting um, our good brother Lowe, and he'll be back soon enough. He just had some serious things that he had to take care of. So I was more than happy to keep the train moving for him. Obviously he's the history guy. Um, so I'm not gonna. I know I can't hold a candle to the excitement that he brings to your journey. With some of the things that you've been able to look into and study. So I want to thank all of you who have definitely been supporting and been present and been engaging. And I definitely would say for this segment, I'll keep it pretty light. And feel free to engage. Feel free to comment because I'm going to kind of speak about something in terms of the Boule Society that I think many people can relate to, and that's pretty relevant. Uh, I didn't really know what I wanted to present on, to be honest with you, which is usually the case with me, you know. Um, but probably about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours ago, it came to me. Or maybe it was a little longer than that, maybe like 3 hours ago. I was like, okay, I'll speak on the Boule because, again, I think it's a very relevant topic right now. And sometimes there are certain things or certain words and certain names that float around that we don't really know what they actually mean, or really understand their significance in terms of the events that we're going through in society, you know. So I'm going to build on it a little bit. And again, feel free, jump in as you will, talk amongst yourselves. It's whatever. This is not a lecture, so please don't think it is. All right, so willfully, this is interactive. So the reason I wanted to speak on the Black Boule or the Boule Society, however you want to look at it, is because there are situations going on right now, and I brought this up on my last podcast where I was kind of the podcast 69. and I was continuing just some of the talk around symbols and numbers. And I brought up the situation going on with Kyrie Irving right now, and of course, which was an offshoot, it was to some degree of what was happening with Mr. Kanye West. And, you know, of course, he's issued an apology, but he's obviously very disgruntled at the same time because what you're witnessing is a public political and financial buck breaking, and for anyone who's not familiar with what buck breaking is, it's the process of taking um, a strong enslaved person, in particular a male, who we generally call bucks, and stripping them of their masculinity publicly, so that they will not be followed, they will not be listened to, and they lose their champion aura, if you will. There's certain people who come forth, especially if we're in an environment where we've been abducted and taken to, but where we were before, one individual or a few individuals may have been considered to be our protectors. Protectors is an important word, and our champions. And if someone can come and strip them of that image and strip them of that supposed identity publicly, then of course it psychologically it implants a certain kind of fear in the minds of those who looked at them that way. So when you look at these people, all of these people who have been publicly broken or publicly chastised or publicly humiliated, sometimes we don't realize the depth of where it's really coming from. We'll look at a certain group, or we'll make it only a black and white thing, and it's never a black and white thing. That's a part of the trick to keep you distracted from what's actually going on and who's actually controlling the strings and why they're controlling the strings, right? Which is the most important thing. So if you've noticed, going back from Marcus Mosiah Garvey um, up to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, Minister Louis Farrakhan, um, you can go, and if you want to go recent, of course you have your Nick Cannons, you have your Jesse Jackson. I mean, sorry, not Jesse Jacksons. Your Nick Cannons. Well, you're Jesse to a degree, but that's another story. Your Nick Cannons and your Kanye West and your Kyrie Irvings, and there's been this extreme kickback whenever you have someone who's melanin dominant begin to speak about their actual real origins. And a large part of the reason for that is because the entire world, the entire world knows who, and I'm going to use this term loosely just because of what we're speaking about. The entire world knows who black Americans are. The entire world knows. The only people who do not know who black Americans are black Americans. The rest of the world is very clear on who. So there is there's an easy accessible body of information for a black American. I'm using that term very loosely, all right? So follow along, because somebody say, we not black. That's, don't classify as black. You have no rights. There's no nationhood with black. I know. Just for those who are listening and may get confused by other terms. Um, it's very easy and very accessible if you want to know what you are. Super easy. What you are, right? That's never a challenge. That's never a problem to dig up and discover. What becomes problematic is when you want to find out who you are. Because who will speak in relationship to others? Who will provide a historical context? Who will provide a psychological context? Who will provide a spiritual context? Especially when you are the who that has been spoken about already and that has been mentioned, in certain texts, in certain law books. You are the who that's been depicted in certain works of art, right? So whenever someone stands up to speak about the who, of black Americans, they are broken. They are whipped, you know. Um, like I said, whether it's buck breaking, and of course, I gave a very sterilized kind of definition of buck breaking, but understand that buck breaking, which you found in places like Nevis, you found in the Breaker Islands, which are off of Jamaica, you know, outside of Jamaica, and as well as here in this continent, was about taking a strong, big, gigantic black quote unquote man, laying him on the ground face down and sodomizing him. That was buck breaking in front of all of the other enslaved Africans. Okay, so that was the definition I didn't give earlier, just to be nice. But I'm not that nice, so it doesn't last for that long. I'll only be nice for about 15 seconds. So it wore off already. You know, well, 8 minutes. We're 8 minutes in, so I was 11 minutes in. I was nice for about 11 minutes. That's good. So um, that's what we see happening whenever someone begins to speak towards the who, right? And again, a lot of times it's a confusion around who's doing what. You know, we think it's a black and white thing, and nobody cares about black and white. Like nobody of any significance could give a darn about black and white, because the majority of the conspiracies that are waged against quote unquote or so-called black people are waged against those black people by non-white considered people, right? So the concept of you thinking that it's this color against it, that's just not the case. The ultimate conspiracy, and just understand when we say conspiracy, or someone may say you're a conspiracy theorist, um, if I am not the one who's executing the conspiracy, then I am not the conspiracy theorist. Because I would have to theorize a conspiracy and then wage it, you know, against people or wage it against society for me to be the conspiracy theorist. If I am the one who is defending myself against your conspiracy and then maybe exposing it, I am not the theorist because I didn't come up with the theory. You did. You're the one who did it, right? So um, the conspiracies have always been around making sure that um, we don't know. Nubians do not know who they are. So you can claim a lot of things that make no sense, and there are people who are perfectly fine with that, even though you think it's establishing a sense of pride. But over the years, you may have found that it didn't work, right? No matter how good it felt, no matter how much you felt like it built up your esteem or gave you a sense of pride, it really just didn't work, right? Because we all have certain activators that push us into our divinity, push us into our sacred space, and push us into our deeper knowing. And whenever someone begins to speak towards those activators, like Marcus Mosiah Garvey, they are broken, they are beaten, you know. And sometimes the people who end up doing it are people who, at some point, were agents of our destruction, you know. And then they wake up to something else and say, "Wait a minute, oh, no, this isn't making sense. It's that," and then that's when they have to be taken down. A great example of that was Bill Cosby, right? Everything was cool with Bill Cosby. He was the ruler. He was the king of television throughout the 70s. He was the king. Right before, like I tell people, by the time he was doing the Cosby Show, which many people know him for because of our age, you know, he was like basically retired at that point. He was retired doing the Cosby Show in his 40s, his mid to late 40s and 50s, and was still killing it. But he was already the man, you know. You look on the credits of it, it was a Cosby production. So he didn't come in as like, I'm going to try to get a show. This is my thing. Different world, that's my thing. My name is on that, right? And everything was cool until he wanted to buy NBC. Because if there was a scene on the Mod Squad, if some of you remember, he was Link on the Mod Squad, the show back in the days. There was a scene where one time they had to get into a computer, and he had to put his password in, and they were guessing his password, and his password was Boule. Right, so he was just putting it right. The rituals are always in front of your face, but you just sometimes don't know what to look for. So he was letting you know right there, I'm a member of the Boule, and I'll explain what that looks like in a minute. But I just want to give a little pre-context a little bit. Once he said, I want to buy NBC, you should know back up. That's not for you to do. You don't get, because NBC is not a big deal now because nobody watches television. But back in the 80s and the 90s, that was a huge station. That was like the main station before some of the other stations had funny shows and they were popping, and Fox and it was NBC. Those of you old enough, you know. He had the money and the wherewithal to buy this station, and when he was denied the ability to deny it, he started speaking about the system, very similar to what Michael Jackson did when he started speaking about Tommy Mottola, and he was saying, "No, these people are gangsters. These people are evil," you know. But Mr. Cosby started speaking about the system, so they killed his son. Then he shut up, right? Um, so there are groups or societies that operate with a public face and then operate with a private face. It's no different than when you had the Black Panther Party for self-defense. You had they were a political party. You had a political front, but then you had the militaristic front that was more in the shadows, if you will. Now we see the images of them walking with the guns and stuff. Somebody was there with a camera, you know. But ultimately, and more specifically, they were a political party, but they had this other, like, if we need to turn it up a bit, we could do that too. But we're really here for the politics. So when you're dealing with the concept of the boule, that's what you're dealing with, right? You're dealing with organizations that have a front where we can all see, and then there's a shadow side or a back end, and those back end sides are where people are having so much trouble being able to speak up and to use certain terminology, right? So as I was thinking about what I would share, you know, in Brother El Karaz, space, I just started jotting down some mental notes just to keep, because this is a very huge subject, and I didn't want to speak on it for 5 or 6 hours, but it could easily be spoken on for 5 or 6 hours. So I just jotted some quick notes that I'll go through off the top of my head that will kind of keep me from getting lost and the things that we could talk about, you know. But so let's start with the concept of the protectors, right? And that's why I said that word protector is very important. Some of you who maybe have gone through the college experience, or maybe just be aware of it, you may be aware of the Divine Nine, right? You may have heard that term before, especially some of you who might have pledged the Divine Nine, right? So we're talking about the fraternal orders, or what we call the Black Greeks. The Black Greeks are the face of your Boule system. Okay, this is the outward face, and not only the outward face, this is the training ground for those who would later perform the work as the protectors. Okay, so it's no different than, some of you may be familiar with the song Buffalo Soldier, Bob Marley, right? And some of you may also be familiar with the story of the Buffalo Soldier, who they really were. These were black men, let me put it that way. These were black men who were brought out west, you know, with the promises of being able to live free if they protected the settlers, the European settlers who were out west, who were encroaching on and stealing the natives' land who was there. And they were brought out there to protect their towns, right? To basically be, it's almost like the movie Glory. If you ever seen Glory, it's like, to almost be sacrificial to these natives who were here. And it was the natives who gave them that term, buffalo soldiers. That wasn't something that they were given. And the reason they called them buffalo soldiers, it was two reasons. One, they said because they were fierce fighters like the buffalo. They were as fierce as the buffalo. The other reason is because of their hair. If you ever look at a buffalo, they basically have afros like on the top of their head. So the top of their heads are like kinky, and they saw these African men, these enslaved men who were coming over and were fighting, and they had hair like the buffalo. So they called them buffalo soldiers, right? So it's similar to that. You'll find that very often, just like on the plantation where you had the overseer, you have these Nubian men who are put in position to protect the interest of the oppressor, right? Now, that is your Boule system, okay? Your Boule system is put in place to protect the interests of the parasitical elite. That is their job, protect the interests of the elite, okay? So, we have our divine nine. And again, this may be a triggering segment. Brother El Karar will be back, and then then you won't have to be triggered. But I care about sharing the truth, and some things are hard pills to swallow because we've been put to sleep for so long with sleeping pills of so many different variety that when someone cracks that Epsom salt under you, it doesn't. If you've ever had Epsom salt cracked under you, it's not a good feeling. It goes into your head. It's not like it just stay. It goes into the back of your head, your ears. Ugh, you know, it's like getting chlorine in your nose. It's just like that type of feeling. So I might be the Epsom or the chlorine, but this soon will pass. So, of course, I'm gonna go through some of the fraternities a little bit, and then I'm gonna explain to you the significance. Alpha Phi, Alpha Phi Alpha, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Kappa Alpha Psi, Omega Psi Phi, Delta Sigma Theta, Phi Beta Sigma, Zeta Phi Beta, Sigma Gamma Rho, excuse me, and Lambda Phi Delta. Those are your divine nine. Now that's a very important term. I'm gonna explain why. So you had, and these dates may be a little wonky because I was right before the show, the segment started. I was writing down um, a lot of it from memory. All right, so everything that I'm sharing with you this evening, as always, look it up for yourself. All right, but you had Alpha Phi Alpha came out of Cornell University. That was in 1906. You had Alpha Kappa Alpha out of Howard, in 1908. Kappa Alpha Psi came out of Indiana University. That was in 1911. You had Omega Psi Phi, which also came out of Howard. That was in 1911. Then you had Delta Sigma Theta, that's a sorority. That came out of Howard in 1913. Then you had Phi Beta Sigma. That also came out of Howard in 1914. Then you had Zeta Phi Beta, which came out of Howard as well in 1920. Then you had Sigma Gamma Rho, that was 1921, coming out of Butler. And then you had Lambda Phi Delta that came out in 63, and that was out of Morgan State University. Okay? So one of the things that you'll learn about a lot of these universities, especially the ones that we call HBCUs, they may be historically black attended universities, but they're not historically black founded universities, okay? Which is an important point because at some point maybe you would ask yourself, well, why would non-blacks want to establish educational pathways for blacks? Like, why would they care? Especially a lot of these schools were funded by Jews. So why would Jews care to fund black schools, But we also have to ask the same question about the NAACP. You know, that was Moskowitz and the Spurgman brothers. You know, Moskowitz, he came out of Romania. So why would these three Jews, why would they want to find or found the NAACP, right? What would the interest be there? And of course, we know the interest was to control the black population, of course. Um, you know, but they, well, that's not it, and we could go all over the place with that. So we have the Boule that was started by Henry McKee Milton. Henry McKee Milton was a doctor, okay, and he started the Black Boule, and it started when I say Boule, I want to give you some info on that. So if you do some research, because I always like to tell you what you're gonna find and what you might want to look for, because a lot of times it's two different things. You got to understand that so many things are manipulated on your feed, like even in Google. So when you search for things, especially things that come on that first page search results, even second page search results, those are manipulated. Those are the things that you're supposed to find. You know, um, but when you're looking at the Boule, a lot of times it'll tell you like the Boules are the protector of the king, well, not so much protector, advisor to the king. That's typically the term that's used. But the Boules were not just the advisor to the kings. We're going back to the times of Aristotle. We're going back to the times of Socrates, right? You had this concept of the Boule. They were not just advisors to rulers, but they were the protectors of societies. Very important, because we've always had secret society. That's A secret society is not the problem. When you're a child, your parents are a secret society. There's things that go on in the bedroom. Because when they leave and they say, "Don't go in my room," you know, that's a secret society. There's some things that you're just not necessarily supposed to be privy to, or you may not be ready to. A secret is something that's sacred. Maybe you're just not ready to be exposed to the sacred thing. So the secret society is not the issue. The issue might be when you get caught up in a dark, deep, deep world agenda. You have these different layers of structures that exist under other structures. A good example of that is the show 24. Where it kind of shows that shadow government. And when you get caught up in the midst of that, that's when secret society could be problematic, if you will. You know, but that sigma psi phi, that's the Boule. The Boule represents the sigma psi phi. You can look these terms up. Um, they were protectors of the realm. Now the realm is held in place by societies, and in particular shadow societies. Okay, very important for you to understand. Shadow societies hold the realm in place, and the Boule protects that. Why is it so important? Because the Boule or the Boule society is comprised of black people. Again, anybody tuning in late, I know we're not black. Okay, I'm using that term for those who just first time coming through or whatever and may not understand other terms, or so we'll focus on what we focus on. So the Boule Society was started by John D. Rockefeller. Now, some of you may be familiar with some of these names. I'm going to share with you a group of names, and I advise you to do the knowledge. Look them up and learn about these people and these families, because these families are important. They are important movers and shakers. They're important movers and shakers. So in 1904, John D. Rockefeller he establishes and funds what was called the nine protectors of the Knights of the Round Table. And the nine protectors of the Knights of the Round Tables are what later became, as your Divine Nine, or your nine Black Greek fraternities and sororities. Okay? So their job was to protect the protectors of the realm. The protectors of the realm were were the knights who sat around the nine table, the round table, right? So it's not to say that there are specifically only nine people who govern and control society behind the scenes, but you're going to see how it's kind of subdivided, if you will, and so those nine secret societies that were established in 1904 by John D. Rockefeller were supposed to be your nine fraternities who would help to protect the realm. There's a really good book. He actually wrote a couple of good books um, that you can pull from, and you can cross reference some of the things that I'm sharing. But it was by a brother by the name of Charles Wesley. Okay, Charles Harris Wesley. You might just see Charles H. Wesley. And he wrote this book in 1954. And in the book, and Charles Wesley, he was a minister. He was a pastor. He was a minister, and he not only wrote texts around the societies, the Greek societies, but he also wrote texts. He wrote a couple of texts about Freemasonry. So if you ever want to get like um, a old perspective, on like some of these things, he's a good person. He wrote a good amount of text, you know. Um, so in 1954, he wrote the history of Omega Psi Phi. That's the name of the book. If you want to go check it out, right? And the reason I pulled my book out because there's a song in there that I thought was significant, but I couldn't remember all the words to it. So I said, let me get it, and I can share it. Um, uh, I'm sorry, it was not Omega Sci-Fi, Sigma Sci-Fi. Sorry about that, Sigma Phi Sci. So he's got this song that he shares that they would sing when they would come together in fellowship, right? And this is, remember the word protector. Um, from far and near, I ain't gonna sing it. I'm gonna say the words. So it's gonna be a poem. From far and near, you've traveled here over rough and rocky road to reach the open portals of this Boule's blessed abode. For glad we are that you have come to share our fellowship and song. Share our fellowship and song. Each archon, okay, I'm sorry. I got to give you something before we go. So archon is what the male members of the Boule call themselves, and the female members are called arcanists. So you have the archon, which are the males, and the arcanists are the females. The word archon means demon. The word arcanist means demoness. Okay? This is what they call themselves. All right? This is the name that they specifically chose to call themselves. Demons and demonesses. Okay? There was a video that I did that YouTube took down. And it was called the Archons, the message from the Archons. And I was reading a particular message. And you can still find it up on some platforms because some people copied it and put it on their pages and stuff. Just like when I did the Willie Lynch letter, they took that down and put a strike against my channel because of me reading the Willie Lynch letter. But you can have videos of people fighting. I mean, you literally have videos on this platform of people getting killed and stabbed. Like, you can have that, but I can't read the Willie Lynch letter. But, we already know what it is, right? Because that's what we're talking about, what it is. So anyway, let me go back to the song, but I just wanted to give you that so you would understand the significance. Each archon who has dared to taste of the cup that threatened death dear Sigma Pi Phi, will defend with his life and dying breath. Defend with his life and dying breath, should any foe a Greek assail. His cunning words shall not avail. His cunning words. Our ears are deaf to envy a tale, ever deaf to envy's tale. Though elsewhere bickerings annoy, here at least are peace and joy, where friendships built on faith abound, strife and discord never are found. Then drink together, archons, dare the cup of fellowship and cheer, for as the apple of the eye is to us Sigma Pi Phi. Okay, so that is the Sigma Pi Phi. They call it the fellowship song, and it's to a tune that they call Maryland, Maryland, right? So if you kind of, that's why I wanted to give you the precursor first. If you were listening to the precursor, and I was telling you that just like on the plantation, you had an overseer. What was the overseer's job? The overseer was handpicked from among the enslaved to protect the interest of the enslaver, right? So the overseer, or the archon or the archonist, or the fraternity member, is what it is the crab. You know, when we talk about the crab in the barrel theory, who are the crabs exactly? These are the crabs. These are the crabs in the barrel. These are the ones that are in there with you, but for some reason, every time you're trying to do something, they pull you. So they have established themselves as another class, as another group. So that's why you notice they say, our ears are deaf to envy a tale, ever deaf to envy's tale. Because we don't care about these other people who look like we're a different group. We're Greeks. We're a different group, even though we all have the same skin color and maybe the same pheno and genotype. We have separated and established ourselves as, because that's one of the questions that you may have trouble resolving. Like, well, if we're all coming up out of oppression, how could one group of oppress others within their group? Wouldn't they want everyone to get on because we all just experience the horrors of this experience? No, because there are things that are put into the heads of people who quote unquote make it. Because the people who make it, these are your archons. Because we are determining making it by the acquisition of wealth, right? Or the acquisition of money. You made it, right? So now you're in a space now where you have to become the crab. And if you choose not to become the crab, your helicopter may crash with you and your daughter in it. Yeah, your helicopter may crash. So you figure that one out. You figure that one out. But I tell you, one of the greatest ways you can figure that one out is when you understand what COVID, where that goes in the Hebrew, and you find out the word in the Hebrew, Kobe, and then you'll figure it out. So if you choose not to play game, we're gonna kill your son Ennis. We're gonna make your helicopter crash. You see, that's the real canceling. Okay, so that happens. You know, that happens. So we have these people who are put in place to control the interests of the oppressors, and to basically to control the quote unquote black masses. Like I said, when Henry Moskowitz and the two Spaniard brothers, when they established the NAACP, the only purpose was to control the black masses. That's it. It wasn't for anything else that they may lie and tell you. So this is where it gets very interesting, because each group each fraternal order or each subsection of the Boule is responsible for a different knight that sits at the table. Okay? And they don't even know it. They don't even know it. They're protecting their interests and don't even know it because these things are established from very young. That, even down to who they're gonna make. Man, I could tell you some. I'm trying not to make this 4 hours. I could tell you some stuff, and you what? you know, it's right in front of your face, but sometimes you don't know what you're looking at, even though it's right in front of your face. But these games are orchestrated when people are teenagers, especially when you're talking about athletes. When they're teenagers, you know, they find out who's the sexual deviant because you're dealing with a lot of the Grecian sexual deviant rituals. Who's the sexual deviant? Who likes to give people pills and have sex with them? Well, we know who we can work with. We know who we can control and bring close to us. So let's give them more of that. Let's exploit more of that. You see. So looking at these families, I'm going to deal with a second. Let me get this off my screen. Um, okay. I'm getting a reminder for the Anu Show and Prove with Aki El Karar. So I'm just giving him a shout out. um, but like I said, so you're dealing with different knights of the round table that those who were in those groups are assigned to protect. Those knights are families. Okay, that's why it becomes so difficult when you start to talk about things like the Illuminati and stuff like that because it's like ooh, and you don't realize that you're dealing with dynasties. You're dealing with families, man. You're dealing with people who have established certain legacies. And it's similar to like I put in the Anu way that each Anu family should be a factory unto themselves. Certain families, just like your fraternities, always produce certain types of people because that is the division that they're required to oversee. So just like the Rothschilds are protected by Alpha Psi Alpha, the Rockefellers are protected by Phi Beta Sigma. The Oppenheimers are protected by Kappa Alpha Psi. The Bilderbergers are protected by Alpha Kappa Alpha. Um, and these names you may have heard before, but learn who the Oppenheimers are. Like, oof, diamonds are a girl's best friend. Wow, they're wild people. The Warburgs. I'm giving you the 9 families. The Warburgs are protected by Omega Psi Phi. Now, the Warburgs were deep because Paul Warburg was the individual who created the Federal Reserve Bank, and they had these secret meetings, if you will, on Jekyll Island, and he at first came up with the proposal. And Jekyll Island, like, is in Georgia, down in Georgia somewhere. It's off the coast. So he had came up with this concept for this cartel of bank, which we know as the Federal Reserve today. But it was this cartel of banks that could basically control the flow of money, but without really having the accountability. So he first came up with it. It was called the Aldrich convention. This was in 1910, and it was rejected. They were like, nah, that's not gonna work. So he came back again in 1913, and he was able to get it through. And that is what you have today as the Federal Reserve Bank, which was started by the Warburg family, but it's attributed to Paul Warburg. But understand that everything is family, so it's not like I create something or I establish a lane, and then when I die, my children go do something else. These are monarchies that we're dealing with. So you gonna hold us down until all the buildings fall in New York. This is what when you say Rothschild or you say Oppenheimer or you say Warburg or you say Hartberg or you Lee, you're gonna always do this, right? So you have again, that Federal Reserve Act, the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, that was Paul Warburg, right? John Jacob Astor, another very important person for you to know. He's protected, or that family, the Astor family, is protected by Lota Phi Theta. Lota Phi Theta. Um, so I'm making a distinction between Delta. I kind of pronounce it like Delta. It's Theta. Lota Phi Theta. Then you have the Habsburg family, right? Very interesting family. They're out of Austria. And if you ever heard of the Secret Society of the Golden Fleece, you've probably heard me mention that before. The Golden Fleece. Um, they basically run that society, and they are protected by Delta Sigma Theta. Okay, so I'm gonna explain to you what that protected means, right? Then you have the Sassoon family. The Sassoon family, good lord, yes. And for any of you older folk, you probably think like Vidal Sassoon, the genes. Yes, that's the same. He was a descendant of the Sassoon. That's the same exact family. But the Sassoon family, they they made and make their money from opium. So you had between like 1840 and 1860, you had the what's the name? The Opium Wars in China, and these were essentially um, wars with this family. The Sassoons, their nickname is the Rothschilds of the East because that's how much money they had. But it was these wars that established what we know today as modern China. And these were wars between Jewish families for the opium trade. But it wasn't just the opium trade of China, it was the global opium trade. Global, right? So they have money beyond what you can imagine. Drugs are big money. They have money beyond what you can imagine. Then, uh, oh wait, and Sassoon, they're protected by the Zeta Phi Beta, Zeta Phi Beta, right? Um, but that was like a bloody crazy war, that Opium War. You could look that up. Very interesting. Those were Jewish families in Shanghai, going wild over the opium, and making a lot of money. And then you have the Lee family. The Lee family is a very significant family. Lee is Li. It's not like Lee. Um, Lee is Li, and Lee coming out of Hong Kong. Um, they're protected by Sigma Gamma Rho, but they are responsible for funding global pandemics. They are responsible for funding. That's that. So every family or every knight of the round table, because remember, these knights are supposed to be knights of the realm. That's who they are. So what you'll notice is that each knight or family, their families, holds down a specific thing that's happening in the realm. You know, and I'll explain a little bit more. So you have, and like I said, I made some quick mental notes. So I may come back. As I'm reading what I type real quick. I might even fix them as I'm talking. But you have the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, and yes, Daddy Warbucks. I saw it in the chat. You have the Warburgs, the Rothschilds, and the Oppenheimers. They control finance. Okay, they control finance, and they correlate to Alpha Phi Alpha, Omega Psi Phi, and Kappa Alpha Psi. This is why the majority, it's the majority of the black lawyers in America come out of those fraternities. Okay, now what happens is, and there was I was mentally like just right before the segment started. There was a movie related to this, but I couldn't think of the movie. But essentially, now do they know like, oh well, we're protecting the global interests of the Oppenheimers and the Warburgs and the Rothschilds? No, but they end up protecting, or they end up always kind of defending or protecting their interest, because these are webs when it comes to litigation. Now they work for those different families, and like I said, those particular fraternities produce all the lawyers. So the way they become protectors of the knights of the table is not so much that they're out there, with guns and they're a private militaristic force, but they are protectors of their interests without even knowing that they are protectors of their interests. See, that's the whole thing. There's a public face, and then there's a secret face to it, right? And I could get into the shadow fraternities, but another time. You know what I mean? Um, so when you think, and I'm just giving you like your groupings. When you think Rothschild, Warburg, Oppenheimer, immediately just go to money. It's money, right? That's what they hold down, right? Then you have the Rockefellers, the Astors, and the Bilderbergers. Okay, those three. Now they deal with education and primarily foundations. And foundations is like they deal with um, foundations that basically will push their interests and will push their work for whatever we're going to do. But they mainly education foundation. So I have spoken before. I think when I did the segment on unschooling or school injured, when I did the podcast on school injured, I spoke about the Rockefellers, creation really of the Department of Education. But it's really these three families that are those are the knights that hold down the brainwashing. Let me just say what it is. That hold down the brainwashing of the population, right? And they're protected by another set. I can't even see what I wrote, but I'll come back because there's something I want to tell you about that one. Then you have, this is important. That's why I'm jumping to this one. Then you have Lee, the Habsburgs, and the Sassoon family. Now, if you remember what I said about the Sassoon family, I won't even try to do it in the chat because you ain't gonna get there in time. Let me see. I'll talk slow. See if you get it. Can you guess what they hold down? Can you guess what their area is? The Lee, the Sassoons, and the Habsburg. I just want to see. I'll take the first answer. You know what I mean? Because I know sometimes people, ha, you got it the first time. Sorta. You kind of got it. Let me get another one. Big Pharma. Exactly. Exactly. These are the three families that control Big Pharma. Now, wouldn't that make sense? To me, it's funny because it's like you go from the opium war, like we got all this opium, what we gonna do with it? We start a pharmaceutical company. So they're protected by your delta, and this is important when you see the correlations with the fraternities and sororities that'll make more sense to you. They're protected by your delta sigma thetas, your zeta phi betas, and your sigma gamma rhos. Now, if you know anything, that's all of your black doctors, your dentists, even your teachers, your professors, and your medical administrators. Particularly those who particularly go in, they always come out of those fraternities. Always, they come out of those fraternities. The majority of them who are black, and their job is again to protect the interest of big pharma, and ultimately they're not they're protecting the interests of big pharma, but they're protecting the interests of these families whose interest is big pharma. You see, um, I know this is a little different history lesson than what Brother El Karage, because he comes with the PowerPoints and all that. Um, I'm not into history. That's why I have him teaching history. I'm only into the stuff that I'm into as it relates to history. The little details and everything. I don't care what the color of Caesar's robe. I could care less, unless it was a ritual. you know. But I don't care. Or like you can go to this region in Greece and get the best figs. I don't care. you know. So it is what it is. So just ride with me. He'll be back. He'll be back. So it's important to kind of understand, like I said, the some of the puppet masters who are behind what you may assume to be some of your institutions or some of your thinking. So even like when you see what's going on with Mr. West, or you see what's going on with Mr. Irving, and you got people like LeBron James who come forward and, yeah, well, that guy's an idiot. You just calling him an idiot? What? Like, why would he's just an idiot? Because he saw a flick and he said, "Hey, everybody, check this out," or because he didn't want to take the jab, he's an idiot. Shaquille O'Neal standing up there, well, yeah, uh, playing this sport is a sport that pulls people together. We're not here to divide people. He wasn't dividing anybody. In fact, he was bringing people together by saying, "I think this is who we are, and this is our. We could all unite under this banner and under this title. Whether you want to call yourself a Negro, whether Negro, you want to call yourself a Hebrew, whatever one, but we can unite under something, But again, these athletes are boule, plain and simple. They're boule. So their job is to protect the interests of the families that they're assigned to. Now, it's always deep when you have someone like a LeBron James, or you have someone again like a K Bryant. Now, why is it so deep? Because most of this seasoning that you get through your boule understanding coming into these fraternities is in college. But if any, some of you may not really follow sports, but these are two athletes who went straight from high school into the league, right? So what's interesting is that when I don't want to go off into this because I could tell you a lot about that Kobe thing. I could tell you a lot. But when he was killed, all of a sudden LeBron gets this tattoo on his chest, right? It's a boule tattoo. And he said that he got the tattoo in honor of Kobe. But it's a boule tattoo. Now, what's important and significant about that is that he got the Sigma Psi Phi tattoo, but LeBron didn't go to college, so you not in a fraternity, right? But we do know that Sigma Psi Phi is Boule. We do know that. And when this brother transitions, the same brother who came up, I think it was for like 13 years, in the Italian town, which was the capital of this particular virus. It was the capital of it. And he was very clear about what he was not going to do. And that happened after that rape case. There's so much I could tell you about that interesting, very, very interesting case with the girl who followed him around, had no business being where she was. El Corral, what's up, brother? um, had no business being where she was. She was assigned to him. Then you find out that he was out there supposed to get a knee surgery. The doctor was a Kappa. The girl's parents were both Kappas. I mean, I don't want to go off to that. When he was killed, now this dude gets a boule tattoo on his chest. And when people started asking him about it, he said, "Oh, it was an honor." How could it be an honor? It has nothing to do with him. It has something to do with the society that murked him. It definitely got something to do with that. So some people get caught up and then they say, "I don't want it." Like Cosby. Cosby got caught up saying, "I don't want this." And he said, "Wait a minute, you getting beyond yourself." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you, I'll share what this is." Okay. We're not even worried about that. We know how to handle you, and they did. So it's important a lot of times to understand the families because it's all about legacy. You know, even when you look at something like the KKK, a lot of people misunderstand what the KKK is, which was it was not started by what you would consider to be a white person. The KKK, it was started by an attorney for the Rothschilds, who was a Khazarian. And I'm giving you these terms. You can go look them up, and you can learn a little bit more. but his name was Benjamin Philip Judah. Sometimes if you look his name up, you'll see Philip Benjamin Judam, but that's not his name. That's not his name. It was Benjamin Philip Judah. Okay, and he was a Khazarian, and he was the one who actually started the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, um, it's important for you to know about people like when I spoke about earlier. Yeah, oh, you know about him. Yeah, he was in the Confederate Army. Exactly. He had a very interesting connection in the Confederate Army because he was a secretary for the Confederate Army. I see Brother El Karal put that in there. He was a secretary for the Confederate Army, and he was an attorney, but he never went to law school. He said that he went to law school in England, but he didn't go to law school in England. It was found out he was an attorney for the Rothschild family, but never didn't go to law school. There's a lot with that dude. He's almost as interesting as the guy who started the Jehovah's Witness church, um, Kingdom Hall. So there are there are purposes for people who rise up, and sometimes you miss when people are critical. You know, when you're hearing certain actors or certain athletes be critical of those who stand up, and you're thinking that, oh, you just brainwashed by white people. It's not a black white thing. Don't fall for that. This ain't black and white. It's a family thing. You see? So if I come out of this organization, you know, you got Shaq again, who got the big Boule brand. You know, if I come out of these families, then I have an obligation and a responsibility to protect the knights of these families. It's good to learn to play chess because you'll understand what the knight does on the chessboard, right? And then you'll start to understand these people who stand up and these lawyers and stuff, how they breaking new ground. They're not protected by their own kin. They're protected by enslaved Africans. Because you got to understand that when chattel slavery came to a close, there were so many systems that were put in place to maintain how do we keep this system going? We still want our overseers. We want that. We still want our servants. We want that. You know, how do we keep our overseers and our servants and this whole system in place? And there were elaborate things done to maintain that system, even like the Prince Hall Masons. Like, there were a lot of things that were done. And you got to look at, again, who's always the manipulators. And again, you might have people like Mr. Irving speak up and say something. Mr. West speak up and say something. Yeah, these people have funny business practices. And there's no forgiveness or love in some of these people. So even after you say, I'm sorry, so you said you're sorry, but now we got to take everything you own. We're going to take your children from you. We're taking everything. We don't care about your apology. You know, like I said, you look at a lot of what you think are historical institutions. Another good person for you to know is Julius Rosenwald. Julius Rosenwald. When you get a chance, all these names I'm giving you, just jot them down, look them up when you get a chance. He was the one of the founders. Some of you might know, not because they're closed now. Someone, as I was informed by some sisters recently, Sears, apparently there's no more Sears. Because somebody needs some clothes for their children. I was like, man, take them to Sears. And he's like, ain't no more Sears. So whatever. But you remember it used to be Sears Roebuck, right? Well, Julian Rosenwald was one of the founders of Sears Roebuck, right? And he had created this foundation called the Rosenwald Foundation, right? And what happened was that when the U.S. Public Health Service, when they wanted to learn different things about these ex-enslaved Africans, Julius Rosenwald donated $50,000. He wrote a check for $50,000 to the University of Tuskegee, so that way they could do an experiment on African men in regards to the venereal disease syphilis, and that was later known as the syphilis conspiracy or the syphilis study or the syphilis experiment. That was funded by Julius Rosenwald. Okay, that's your. So anybody who's ever shopped at Sears, I love Sears. Or, when I was younger, when the Sears catalog would come, you go to that bra section. I think I'm not the only little boy who did that. Go to that bra section, because back then, that was before internet and stuff. That was about as raunchy as you could get. The bra section of the Sears Sears Roebuck catalog. Um, but yeah, that was like in 1929. And at the time when he did that, the U.S. Public Health Service tried to categorize it as like a humanitarian service, because it's like, yeah, we're gonna have this. Yeah, J.C. Penney's had it. Yeah, J.C. I mean, yeah, I see El Karar. You had J.C. Penney's, you had Sears Roebuck, and then in between that, you get Jet. You had the Jet Beauty of the Week, page 43. I always remember the page 43. So yeah, man, that was as sexy as it got back in the days. That's about all you could really do back in the days, is look at that. But a lot of times these things happen, like I said, because the ultimate goal is for us not to know who we are. The what we are, you call yourself whatever you want. It doesn't matter. They don't trip. The who is significant. The who is very significant. You call yourself an African, nobody says anything. You might get a couple little weird questions. You could say, man, don't call me African American, man. This ain't my country. I'm an African. All right, you an African. Whatever. License and registration. African. Like nobody's really tripping off of that, because again, it's not knowing. Like I said, the whole entire world knows who we are. We're the only ones who don't know. You know, and our self-esteem is so shot that it's hard to kind of get that information through, if you will. But I spoke about in the podcast recently a conversation I had with someone who wasn't very bright, from quote unquote South Africa, who tried to, I don't know what she thought she was trying to do, because you can't do nothing to me. You can't do nothing to me. So I'm the uncheckable. I'm uncheckable. I'm unf-wittable. You know what the word F stands for. I'm unf-wittable. I'm unpimpable. I'm unsimping. I'm the un. I'm like the uncola. I'm the unchief. She tried something. I don't know. But when I was explaining to her, like, yeah, Scipio Africanus. Where the word Africa is where it came from. So it wasn't called Africa before. Well, I'm a South African and you trying to, shut like whatever. But here's the thing where it gets deep with some of these things. If you don't even study, like the terms and the puppets and the people behind it, like you want to call yourself an African, right? You feel good calling yourself an African. Okay, cool, no problem, got you. Who was Scipio Africanus? Like, let's get that down, because that's kind of important. I know he was a great Roman general. He was a powerful. He came from a powerful family, really wealthy family, and he was a great Roman general. He defeated Hannibal. Hannibal Barca at I think it was Zema, was the name of the place. He defeated, because his family was actually really strong and popular right up until the time that he defeated. Zama. Okay, Zama. Okay, Zama, Zoo. But he was also, his family. They were known pedophiles. So they were ministers and priestesses in the pedophilia cult of Antiochus. Okay, that was one thing. They also perform what they called, or what is called spirit cooking, right? So I don't know if any of you are familiar with spirit cooking and what that is, but it's essentially when you take like menstrual blood, semen, different kind of body fluids and things like that, and you ingest them, or like you have Mariana Abramovic. She's somebody you should look up, and she creates paintings with this the spirit cooking, right? And she's constantly denying that she's not in a satanic cult or run a satanic cult. Now, this is someone who spends a lot of time with Jay Z and Beyonce and Mr. West and the Kardashians and a lot of other people. She is a known spirit cooker. Um, she, as well as Hillary Clinton, is a known cooker. Bill Clinton is a known spirit cooker. Barack Obama is a known spirit cooker. Okay, so Scipio Africanus was a known spirit cooker, and he would take the fluids of young boys and young girls, and they would his entire family. They would use them. I'm sorry, I keep getting alert. I got different devices in my hand. um, they would take these, different um, fluids, and they would use them. Now, Antius was a young boy who was a boy lover of a Roman emperor at that time. The emperor's name was Hadrian, Hadrian, however you would pronounce that. And he would take him on these trips, like, "Hey, babe, we're gonna go here, we're gonna go there," right? And he took him to Egypt, and Antius he died in the Nile. Is some say that he fell off the boat. Like, it's not really clear exactly how he died, but it's for those who know better, it's kind of understood that he was sacrificed in the Nile, right? This was Hadrian, the emperor's boy lover. And what happened was, after that happened, when they returned to Rome, there was a cult that was created around Antius. He became worshipped, this boy lover. And Hadrian, was that the emperor who went to England? Yes, that was the emperor who went to England. So the cult was created, and there were a lot of things put around it. But that's when the spirit cooking really became really more popular. So, and it's all kind of different rituals, all kind of different fluids. It's not just that they eat them and they paint with it. They also do a lot of other different things with the fluids. Sometimes they use animal fluids and things like that. Well, Scipio Africanus, his family were very well known for this. Like, this was their thing, spirit cooking. This is what they did, and they were very well known for having child lovers. They were pedophiles. So whenever you call yourself an African, think about that, and think about why no one has a problem with you calling yourself an African. That's never an issue, because you didn't know what you were saying all this time. You didn't know that you were giving props and energy to a satanic pedophile. Scipio Africanus. Yeah, he was a great war general. I mean, but he defeated Hannibal. That's our guy. We like Hannibal. That's the one we like. The dude came with the elephants. We'd rather be called Hannibals. Even though it's a homage to Baal, but I'd still take that over. I worked that out with Baal, with that Elohim. But yeah, so the Afrikaners were a wild family, man. They were not what you would want to identify yourself with. So it's never a problem when you say it, and people, because those who know, like, yeah, yeah, you identify with that. That's why you can't seem to get right with the cosmos, because you're identifying with those who are in open rebellion against the natural order. You know, so again, being a protector of the realm, or being the boule, if you will, it means that you are protecting the interests of these families that have a historical record and testimony of subjugating your people. Again, people like Julius Rosenwald, who, when you see these foundations and you're like, man, but they gave money for this, they gave money for that, or you see these people, a lot of these fraternities and sororities, like, but they do work in the community. You got to step back sometimes and look at the larger picture. These are overseers. These are your people who go into law enforcement. These are your people who become lawyers, who become doctors, and they hold they're the vanguard, and they hold the line to protect other people, and so that those other families can work in the shadows. How much do you get to hear about the Oppenheimers? You may hear about the Oppenheimer Fund, or you may hear about Cecil Rhodes, even a Rhodes Scholar. Find out who Cecil Rhodes was. Another pedophile, another racist, like oppressor. Find out, know who Cecil Rhodes is. You see, I'll do you one even better. The first black woman to receive the Rhodes Awards, the Rhodes Scholar Award. Learn about her. I'm not even gonna tell you her name. Learn about her. You're gonna see some things that's gonna kind of surprise you, and it still pieces all this stuff together. A lot of these different funds and awards that we all want, or again, the opportunity to be on the screen, on the movie screen, you pass through these societies, and you have to play. You have to play. You have to. You know, if you don't play, you get sent back down. You see, because you're taught and you're trained to think that your success is tied to that space, not your inner peace. Not you having a foundation of wisdom that you can build on and understand the world by. You know, before it even begins with money or currency or notoriety or fame, I have something that I can look at the world and figure things out. When I walk out of my door in the dawning, I'm not walking around kind of just being tossed about by the wind, but I have a foundation. The Boule can't give you that. They give you false interpretations of that. Just like if you go to you go into Freemasonry, they try to be Kemites. It's a false idea of being Kemetic, but that ain't it. You see. So I just wanted to share that. Like I said, I didn't want to go too crazy because we could go way, way, way deeper into this. I didn't even mention too many names, um, but there are names. There are names, and some of the people, like your Oprah Winfrey's and your Harvey Weinsteins, your Gayle Kings. When you start to ask these questions, like, yeah, Oprah's taken. Why did Oprah's house get raided? We still don't really know why Oprah's house got raided when they were doing the Harvey Weinstein investigation. And why won't she say anything negative about Harvey Weinstein? Oprah, what's going on? Why is it that when Gayle King, had what's his sister? Lisa oh God. Lisa Leslie, the basketball player. Why is it who was friends with Kobe? Why is it that Gayle tried to throw after he died, tried to throw him under the bus? And the interview wasn't even about that. Protecting the knights of the realm. Oprah has to protect the knight of the realm. Gayle has to protect the knight of the realm. Jamie Foxx has to protect the knight of the realm. Will has to protect the knight of the realm. I could go through the list. I know who they are. They let some through, and those are your crabs in the barrel. Those are the ones that make sure that you don't. And I'm not talking about get to a point where I'm trying to start my own business. You could do that. Money ain't about nothing. Money ain't about nothing. Anybody can get money, you know. But establishing legacy, these are the ones that prevent the establishment of legacy, because your legacy is going to always be built around your ethnic identity. Because that way your family has the same cultural values and mores. So when someone comes forth and says, wait a minute, hold on a second, I think we have a ethnic history. It's been in front of me this whole time. We are the Hebrews. It's us. We are the Sumerians. It's us. We're the Akkadians. It's us. When you start going through the Assyrians, that's us. Nobody grows a better beard than we do. Look at the reliefs. That's us. Now we got it. All right. You know now. You know. We told you. The door is that way. You see, that's what happens. You know. All right. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you everyone for coming through. And I didn't go through the chat too much really. I don't even know how to get it back up, but I don't know how to get the chat back up. Pause. So yeah. So thank you definitely, and El Karad, give thanks for coming through and showing some strength and correcting me on the Zima thing. I could because I said it wrong again. You corrected Zama, where Hannibal was defeated. So give thanks for that. Um, and yeah, man, for everything that I said, I'm not gonna go through the scars. I mean, the scars through the chat. Be honest with you, I had a really long day, so you probably see my eyes are red. I don't feel like reading all that. So y'all chat amongst yourselves. Chat amongst yourselves. So, but yeah, man, you're more than welcome. It's my honor to be able to support my brother. And yeah, man, like I said, everything that I mentioned this evening, please do look up. Verify what I'm saying. Some things you probably won't find though. The things that are presented to you digitally are very controlled. So like I said, when I just wrote my notes, it was off the top of my head. These are things that I know. You know, See, that's why in the On New Way, I tell you your first investment in wealth is where? Your education. You ain't taking this. I mean, you can bump you on the head with a brick or something like that. But with this head, though, that ain't really, you're going to break the brick. I mean, honestly, you're probably going to hurt your hand too. Your whole arm going to be vibrating. Like, damn, Chief got a helmet under his skin. Don't it look like it? But, yeah, man. So, talk about extraterrestrials, right? But, so yeah, man, you may have a little difficulty locating everything, but you can get pretty close. You can certainly look up some of the people I spoke about and some of the events. I don't think they're as secret as they used to be. They probably aren't. All right, but in any event, man, just keep studying and keep putting that work in. All right, everyone, be well. Peace.